Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Tuesday, July 22nd special meeting of the Police and Fire Commission. We'll start with the roll call. Let the record show Commissioners Dorf and Goldhahn are present in person. Commissioners Boyle-Roloff and Laux are attending via Zoom. Commissioner Cobb is excused. You all received a copy of the agenda in the mail. If there are no questions, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Move to approve.
Motion by Commissioner Dorf,
Second.
by Commissioner Laux. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstained? Okay. Informational, Police Department Captain promotional process and Commander promotional process. So the information was in your packet. The processes were the same as we've used in prior hirings. So are there any questions for our guests here from the Police Department?
None for me.
Guess not. They've all worked well in the past, so we'll continue on with those. The next item is consideration with possible action on a request to approve the police lieutenant promotion list. That list was also in your packet. That shows in alphabetical order Brian Krieger, Eric O'Brien, and Jacob Wallner. And if approved, that list would stay in effect until July of 27.
We did have one recent withdrawal. Officer Wallner had withdrawn.
Oh, he did. Okay. All right.
The list was published.
All right. So that leaves Krieger and O'Brien. Any questions? And you were part of that process, right?
I was, yes.
Okay. All right. Given none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the police lieutenant promotional list that would be in effect from now until July of 27.
Move to approve the list as amended.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor to approve the list as amended with the withdrawal of Jacob Wallner. Is there a second?
Second.
By Commissioner Laux. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? All right. Motion list is passed. The next item is consideration of possible action on a request to approve the revised patrol officer recruitment process. That revised process was in your packet. I'm sure that our visitors today will have more to say about that.
So I can start us off. So we had been having some discussions about our recruitment process, ways to improve it, continue to attract quality candidates, as well as ensuring that we're reaching candidates in a timely manner. The police department has a number of openings and some expected retirements as well. And we're facing, a limited pool of qualified candidates, as our most agencies, as well as competition along with those other agencies, and looked at a rather lengthy process and where we could make some revisions to that process. So, one thing we'd like to do is review applications more timely. So every week we'll be reviewing applications rather than waiting for a quarterly testing cycle. And looking at reducing the required credits for those that need the academy to 40 credits, because they would be able to obtain those last 20 credits while attending the academy. And that's an additional change would be looking at the report rating test, which we currently do, looking at a more comprehensive written exam, which is administered online, which would allow us to conduct the testing more frequently, as well as a video interview process. So both the video interview and the written testing would be facilitated through Public Safety Answers, which is the company that the city currently uses for the firefighter process, has been used with. And then we'd ask that the commission come in earlier in the recruitment process to those video interviews. So not sure if that would be one or two commissioners, we can discuss that. But would be given access to the portal to review the interviews that way. And then candidates would be backgrounded and reviewed again by all the commissioners through ESOP. And we're looking at updating ESOP to have a place for the commissioners to go in and make a recommendation as to whether they'd like to see an offer extended. So I don't know, if you have anything to fill in?
No, I think Jen, you did a great job of outlining what some of our proposed changes are. What we're trying to. But we've put our heads together to try to figure out how we can smooth out the process, make it a little more quick for the applicant, so they're not sitting there for 3 months with no idea where they stand, right? And we're waiting for that next test phase, right? We just pulled the last 3-month batch, and we've got, I think it was 10 applicants just from May that hadn't heard anything back other than thank you for submitting, right? So what we're finding, and it's nationwide, right? We are all in heavy competition for the same candidates, right? And what we're trying to do is get that offer to them more quickly, get them through the process to the offer more quickly, so that we don't lose them to the competition, right? Let's face it, everybody in the room knows Brown County is our most one of the larger competitors with us right now. And if somebody's sitting on our offer list, they're sitting on theirs, right? When we met, we found some ways that we could create some efficiencies, right? That might be able to get them to that yes and that conditional offer a lot more quickly. So that's what we're presenting here is exactly that, just to smooth some points out, make sure that the PFC has an integral part in that, but moving that interview towards the front end, where the PFC members are seeing it, we're seeing it, HR is seeing it, and we can score it as such as we always have, but we also get input into what their questions are for the interviews. And then following kind of what Fire set out for the testing process, because I believe they're using the same test or a similar test, same company. And again, just have that quicker process of I applied and now I'm invited to the test and the interview, and it's just happening a lot more rapidly for that candidate, right? And there is some more work on our part on the front end, just because it's not a quarterly thing anymore. This is a weekly thing, right? And we're more than willing to lean into that, because we know we need that quicker process, because we're just losing candidates that are there and then gone, right? So that's what we're proposing.
Questions?
I have a
Jen,
Go ahead, John.
did I hear you correctly? We require 60 credits, but you get 20 or 21 for the academy, correct?
Yes, I think that's relatively recent. So if we have a candidate coming in with 40 credits and then they successfully complete the academy, they'll be awarded the remaining 20 credits to satisfy the 60 requirement.
So a 2-year degree gives you basically 60 credits and the ability to either apply for the academy, or if you do that track that you finish certifiable with a 2-year degree. So now we're looking at accepting applications after a 1.5 years of college. We're going to start getting kids that are 18.5, 19 years old. Are we willing to drop our standards that much?
Before you answer, I want to piggyback on that, because right off the bat, I have concerns with that as well. If currently the candidate is awarded 20 or 21 credits after completing the academy, they're coming to us then with 80, 81 credits. And to back that off, we are, I mean, as John's asking, I think that is lowering the standards. And I guess I do have concerns about that. I appreciate the need to move quicker on this. I mean, when you mention people who have applied and may haven't heard anything other than thank you. I've been in that situation myself before, and it's maddening. So I do appreciate that. Moving from quarterly to weekly is a big jump. I also have questions about, as far as our involvement with the interviews. Are you saying it would only be with, the video interview? We wouldn't be doing any more face-to-face interviews with candidates?
Mhm.
Okay. All right. Anyway, back to the credits, I guess. So
Can I add
I'll put that back at you. Yeah,
Um,
please.
So the Law Enforcement Standards Board, obviously that certifies all law enforcement officers in the state of Wisconsin. Their requirement is, and we didn't have a credit requirement in Milwaukee. We basically solely relied on that LESB standard,
Mhm.
which was they get the 60 credits within the 5 years of employment. And so that is obviously a requirement, right? And if they don't meet that, then they become decertified, but the majority of candidates will get that 60 credits within that 5-year period. And I think, obviously cost is usually an issue for people to go to college these days, because it's not cheap. I know technical colleges are a lot cheaper than, regular 4-year in your university. However, there's other, daily expenses that people have. And so I think opening that up and allowing them, to come in with at least 40 credits is still like a standard that, LASB is different than what the actual state requirement is. So we have a standard. We're not, we are going from 60 to 40, but we still have a standard higher than the LASB in the state of Wisconsin. So
What do other jurisdictions in the area do? What does Appleton do in the county?
they went to 40. I just talked to Polly Olson.
Okay.
And she said she lowered hers to 40 as well, because of the struggles they're having with recruitment.
Okay.
Hey,
So,
okay.
go ahead.
I think, we're lowering the educational standard, so to speak, to get in the application pool to start the process, but what we're not lowering, we'll never lower is the background process. There's a lot of steps in place already with the EQIs and just the overall background through the PEP exam. And that measures a lot of different parameters, including theft, maturity, able to problem solve, critical think. A lot of those things are not changing. Plus, when they go to the academy curriculum kind of also helps bring that out too and get them to a better spot. So I think in the end, when it comes to us getting to the point of a final candidate, and ultimately hiring somebody, we're still keeping that high standard with the background process. It's getting harder to find folks in that age, so to speak, but we have to be careful of not, we've had people hired at 19 years old already and worked it very well. But the process that we have in place already, I think will help keep us at that high standard. So we're hiring the best candidate. And in this new process, getting them on our radar a lot quicker instead of having them sit for sometimes weeks and weeks.
Yeah, and I think too, the 40 credits versus the 60, it's become more of the norm that people are sponsored into the academy where they'll gain those last 20. Right, the days of coming with a 4-year degree or the academy already done is we're not in that bubble anymore. Right now we have people coming saying, no, I want you to pay for us to go to the academy where you're going to get that final 20. Right, so if you look at those applications, you see fewer and fewer people that are willing to flip their own dime to put themselves through. And if you look at the academies, I would say, good Lord, like 90% of some of the classes are sponsored students, to the point where the state had to get involved and keep some spots open for non-sponsored candidates, right? So that's one of those things that have kind of changed over the years as well.
Okay. And that was the point I was gonna make is all this does is change who can put an application in. We still have the testing, the reviews, the interview process. The proposed change to that, but it's still an interview process that we'll have. So we'll still have control over who we hire. And if they don't have the maturity, the life skills and things like that, we've got opportunities to move them out of the process.
And I have a question, like once someone is hired, because I think you would get younger candidates. I mean, is the field training robust enough to really get them the skills they need, or can they continue that? Are there ways to fund that education going forward? I agree, the gotta shift things up with hiring and recruitment because it's very difficult out there. But I just and I don't know enough about the field training to say it isn't robust enough, but I'm just wondering, like, once they're in, is there even more we can do to really get them prepared for the work ahead?
Yeah,
'Cause-
yeah, in our field training program, that's changed a lot too.
Okay.
Training program was derived around the first 3 steps having a 4-week period for each step. That typically was about 12 weeks. We've extended that now at least a week, if not 2 weeks, for each step. And that's all kind of deranged on how the probation officer is doing. If we see them struggling in step 1, we don't advance them to step 2. They get an extension. And then we identify where they're lacking. If it's problem solving, if it's interpersonal skills, if it's high risk calls, whatever the case is, but they don't get to a point of passing training until they really are successful in step 1, step 2, step 3. Step 4 is kind of their shadow phase. That's where the officer training them is in plain clothes, and that is absolutely 2 weeks. But that can be extended also. And then step 5 is where they're on their own, but there's still an evaluation period that runs till the end of their probation. In the recent probably 2 years, we've worked with HR to extend several probation officers' probationary status to get them a full period of time to equal an evaluation time for us. So we've had to extend that. Some of that comes with a little bit of lack of experience per se, but a lot of that just comes from the dynamic of different calls that they might encounter in training and they might not be a part of. And that we've found successful, but that's ever changing. We've had some lateral candidates that came in and advanced through the training program really quick. So it just really depends on the person and how the training.
Yeah.
And I think for me, Marion, that field training process isn't just to acclimate the new hires to the Green Bay PD way. It's also to give a broader, longer, multiple eye look at them to make sure that they will be successful. And if they won't, we can identify that early and move them out of the process.
Yeah.
I'm willing to try anything to help with recruitment, and I trust the PD that if they realize that this isn't working, that this will be reevaluated. It's been a long time, but 35 years ago, I was advised to get a bachelor's because that's the way law enforcement was heading. And I was told you might not be able to get a job if you only have a 2-year degree. Well, over the last 35 years, that is completely flipped. Now they're saying, hey, 40 credits plus the academy, we're desperate. I trust the internal affairs do a good job on the backgrounds. In my opinion, 90% of the candidates that we've hired have been good. And the ones that aren't, we weed out. But I just want to be assured that, hey, in a year or 2 years, if we realize that these new standards are failing, that someone is going to be willing to step up and say, okay, we tried it. It's not working out like we planned. We have to go back to a stricter standard.
And we can easily do that. We can put a spot holder in that if we do approve this, the year after it takes place, bring them back and spend a good part of the meeting having a full report on what's been found in it.
I realize and recognize that 20 credits, given everything else, once the process starts, the field training, all the background checks and what have you, isn't going to make a great deal of difference. I mean, it's those other things that will make the difference. Still, the question, for me, had to be asked. I support it. I'm very supportive of it and of the need to quicken the process. I would like a little bit more information though on the interview process. Just if you could flesh that out for me a little bit. I mean, right now, we have to have a quorum, and I would assume that would still continue if we're doing it by interview.
Yeah.
I mean by on video.
The video interviews are actually pre-recorded, so we would go in to the system and review the interviews that have already been recorded.
Independently or as a body? Okay. Okay. You see any issues with that?
I'm working through them. So
Okay.
when I read this the first time, my first reaction was, gee, not having a face-to-face interview, it is a big difference. But then I thought, well, through COVID, we hired everybody through online interviews. We have the option of zooming in, so all of us at one time or another have zoomed
Certainly.
into some interviews through that process. What isn't there anymore, and I try to think back if interviewee gives an answer, and that generates another question from one of the commissioners, and then that creates a new discussion. Has that caused us to reject a candidate? And I don't think it has. It's caused us to get some information. So my question is, if through the reading the written reports, the background investigation, and viewing the interview, do we have the ability to go back and ask the candidate some additional questions, or could that be put into the process?
I think we could do that.
I think we always have to.
Yeah, because to me,
You're the
it's-
governing body that
Just
approves.
keep that door open.
yeah. Yeah, because that, and actually having ESOP and being able to look at the backgrounds and all the other data at our convenience. I still like to do it shortly before the meeting because then the candidates are fresh in your mind. But having that to look at any time has really, I think, sped up, at least in my perspective, sped up the process for the commissioners and made it much easier to review them at your own time. And so I think adding to that with this would be another good step to let us do things fairly quickly. We would have to have a commitment to the commissioners that once we get the email from Chris that something new is in there, that we go in and review it right away,
Mhm.
since now we'll do that process. And then I guess the question for the commissioners, do we want to say as soon as we need 3 for a quorum, as soon as 3 commissioners have viewed that and given it their blessing that they're okay with hiring this candidate, we would go forward? As opposed to waiting for all of us?
When reviewing the background investigations.
And just in the ESOP world, could we make a heading, yes, you approve it
Yeah.
for further questions, and then that helps you develop a quorum, so to speak.
Yes.
That's what I'm taking notes on, because then we can ask for further PFC review and have them appear via Zoom.
And I think a time frame, like, do you need them done? Like, are we going to get these interviews and then they need to be reviewed by tomorrow, or, kind of be real clear on the timing?
Yeah, in our initial discussion with HR on this was we thought it might be fair, and this is for discussion, but we were discussing a week, right? Of if we Monday through Friday and even a weekend be enough for the committee to look at it and come back with.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think then if you have a quorum after that, that's good. I think that's reasonable.
Yeah, and if we have a person that through the process, you're coming in and saying, this is a great candidate. That can be known, and that would be an impetus for us to get in there as quickly as possible and do that.
And with the interviews, we can customize the questions, so we can certainly take input from the commissioners on questions we'd like to ask and. make
But
sure.
don't we have to ask everybody the same questions?
Yes,
So we can talk about customizing the questions.
we can develop our set of questions together.
Oh, you
with
got,
input
okay,
from
all
the
right, all right.
commission.
Rod, are you willing to give up the ability for the commission to have a discussion like we so often do? After the candidate leaves, we kind of look around and go, sometimes we discuss, are you willing to give that up? Because I think with this new process, that would be very difficult.
I think we give it up, having it happen immediately in one setting. What we don't give up is when you view the interview, when you read through the background, any concerns you have, that shows up when you make your comments at ESOF, and then all the rest of us can see that. So anytime one of us puts a question in or a concern, the others can look at it.
Burgers.
And ESOP triggers an email to us saying that John just added a comment on candidate XYZ, or Rod just added a comment, and then we can go in and view that. So yeah, we missed the back and forth immediately, but I think we still have 90% of that through being able just to document what our concerns are, what we see.
Okay.
And none of that is subject to open records because it's, I mean, we are, when we do these things, we do them in closed session.
Right, hopefully, so I can verify that with law.
And just looking at recently, some pretty strong candidates from the background who've been in and we've lost them. And so we can avoid that because, like you say, everybody's hiring, everybody's got it. And it's not just law enforcement or fire anymore, it's
Yes.
everybody. And even businesses that have internships, they're working those earlier and earlier in people's school careers to get their hooks in them. So, police, it isn't unique to police.
That's what we're doing in our denomination. It's the same conversation and about the requirements that had been in place and how do we have to be more adaptable and change that up and not compromise, but make it more accessible. So yeah, it's real. I mean, we do lose something without the immediate conversation, but I think if we gain something with the efficiency, and I think we just have to like evaluate on a regular basis how this is working to make sure we're not losing quality.
Okay. And again, the PS, it's our bat and ball, so the PFC administers the process and has control of the process. So even if we get into this 3 months or 4 months and somebody's got, this isn't working, we can come back and revisit it. So it's not a guarantee that it has to go on for a year or 2 years. We'll do the annual reviews just to verify that. But if anything comes up that causes a major concern of someone, if we do approve it, we have the ability to go back and reassess.
How would we assess it? I mean, based on is there a number or percentage of people currently that we know that don't make it, that wash out going through the training process?
We can definitely get you those numbers, but on our side, we just had 2 or 3 in the last year that didn't make it through training.
I mean, I think we would have to rely on you to tell us whether it's working or not, so, yeah,
But
okay.
I agree, and I think that's what we'd look at, is prior to this change, how many people were washing out in the field training process or within the first couple of years versus how many we have we made a change, and if there's no system change, then that would say it was good.
I think too, we could measure the application being submitted to the hire. That, how that duration of the process, right? But then what we're also discussing is, okay, the success going through the FTO program. And I know several of us at the table already know this, but the chief is looking at doing some broader fine tuning of the program. Rick had mentioned some of it already, but a lateral transfer is not the same as somebody fresh out of the academy, right? And we're aware of that. But we want to make sure that all our FTOs are in line with that same thing, and that the process is transparent to the employee and the FTO and the training division, right? And ultimately you won't.
And I'm where John is, I look at you, you're the ones that go on calls with these people.
Yeah.
So I trust that you're not going to do anything to cause us to get poor candidates that come through the door.
Oh, I agree. And you ready to go with this for next month already? Did I see August?
Just have to get the test questions agreed upon and get that set up.
So once those are set, they can be sent out to the commission, so you can review them rather than wait to another meeting and then schedule a meeting shortly after that to. All right, so the follow-ups we had was just seeing if there was a process to go back if we did have questions, additional questions for a particular candidate, we could go back and get those answered.
Mhm.
And for me, if that's the case, then I would be fine with it. So we can either approve it now with that, dependent upon that change, or we can say as soon as the change done, let us know how that will look and then approve it at that time.
Well, I'd make a motion to approve it with the understanding that I don't know how we want to word that, but the change that you just elucidated would be included in there.
The ability to follow up with an individual candidate.
Yeah.
If it generates another question prior to our rejection or approval. Okay. All right. We have that motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Dorf, second by Commissioner Boyle. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstained? All right, unanimous approval. Thank you all. Hopefully we'll not lose any more through the process. All right, so the next agenda item is consideration with possible action on review of patrol officer candidate backgrounds. Actually, the next two agenda items deal with closed session, so I'll go through the closed session verbiage for both. And then we'll do one vote to go into closed session and cover both of those. Consideration with possible action on the review of patrol officer candidate backgrounds. The commission may convene in closed session pursuant to sections 1925, paragraph 1, sub C and F, Wisconsin statutes to consider employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercise responsibility. And also pursuant to that same statute, the commission may convene a closed session for the purpose of interviewing, evaluating, and considering employment of patrol officer candidates. The commission may thereafter reconvene an open session pursuant to sections 1925, paragraph 2, Wisconsin statutes, report the results of the closed session and consider the balance of the agenda. Is there a motion to go into closed session?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Dorf,
Second.
by Commissioner Laux. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we are in closed session, open session. All right, while in closed session, we completed items 3 and 4 on the agenda, which included background review and an interview with the candidate. We reviewed one background, we conducted one interview, and chose to continue that person in the hiring process. With that, I'll ask for a confirmation of that report.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Dorf,
Second.
by Commissioner Laux. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Great. That's confirmed, and that completes our agenda, so I entertain a motion.
Move to adjourn.
Motion by Commissioner Dorf,
Second.
Second.
Commissioner Boyle. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? We are adjourned.